The Truth, Part 2, Part 1 down below. What happened after the first marriage counseling? I am filled with rage, utter complete smash something rage. I don't get this way. But to sit there and listen to the justifications, the legitimization, the utter bold-faced lies spewed forth. And the crying, the hatred of me, as if I just was the most abusive, heartless guy on the face of the planet. It was as if the last year of my miserable life caused by this venomous thing called a woman was excused, diluted with half-truths. Generalizations of how I never, you always, finding myself spoken over, refuted, invalidated. Well, this has all been a great big mistake of my own fault, put into my own head by my own misinterpretation of the facts. I mentioned the secrecy of the cell phone, hiding it, taking it to the bathroom. Oh. Well, show him your phone then. I was put on the spot like a child, being handed the phone to prove my ridiculousness. I refused to look at it. Caught off guard, I was unable to say what I felt about it all. Here it was, in my hands, as if it were available to me all along. What then? Was I to fish around for deleted text messages? Listening to my wife discard every statement I made with crap from 10 years ago that somehow had an effect on today's indiscretions of hers. I am so mad I don't know what to do with myself. Then to listen to her after coming home sulking and absolutely quiet in her bitterness towards me, turn on the TV and laugh repeatedly at some show. As if to laugh in my face. Okay, forget about not throwing her under the bus. This next session is going to reveal truths about my life with her long buried within me. To what extent, though? To what extent, I've never felt so humiliated in attempting to explain why I had lived like I have for so long, thinking I was finally going to be able to talk about it. I feel like I choked, like every point I had just completely escaped me, somehow. I came out to appear a complete bad guy. I want a ducking scream. How it was so surreal, like being put in the spotlight and here's my chance to let it all out. And then denied any validation whatsoever. Infuriating. My wife has often said within the last 8 months to me and to others that she feels empty. Both personally within herself and towards me in the relationship. This was coupled with a sense of a lack of happiness as well and was stated. She told the MC that her becoming involved with the other man was what made her aware that something was wrong with the marriage. But when I state how devastating that was to me, it is quickly minimized by statements such as how we hadn't been happy for a couple of years. Without even acknowledging or validating the darkest levels I've been these last 6 months since discovery of the emotional affair. I am aware that the core of my happiness comes from myself, but also the knowledge that those closest, wife, daughter, and family, are happy as well. 3 years ago, when none of this was even a consideration, life seemed great to me. It had issues, but they were external. And the core of our family was intact. When my wife began to have a few passing in her family, and her personal financial situations were becoming worse through her spending, an inability to control that, life stepped in and kicked her some more in terms of consequences for her very own actions in many areas. I was there the whole time, not only exhausting all efforts to support and love and be there emotionally for her, but I could tell there was a part of me that didn't feel like I was viewed as that. I was simply another burden or chore that had to be taken care of. I had somehow become part of this unhappiness in her perspective, and had no idea how. I do more for her and this family than many married men we both know and can compare with. And I am not trying to be prideful or conceited, but she has direct examples through her lifelong girlfriends and their husbands, boyfriends, of just how lazy and unsupportive a person can get. She often came home with stories about how so-and-so does nothing or does something completely contrary to a good relationship. I had throughout the years encouraged and suggested changing various aspects that I saw as problems, such as finance and emotional closeness, but I could never get out of her perceived to-do list, and only always ended up as a contributor to her unhappiness, rather than being a part of her happiness. Her value in the areas that I value were completely different, and I am trying to understand what it is she values. I really am not liking what I see and can attribute a world of her unhappiness to those things. Even when giving her money when she had to send it all out to card payments after a paycheck, even when we found a new restaurant that had great margaritas and we enjoyed frequenting that place. It was ours, we did more together. Went on dates, to the point where she admitted that she enjoyed time with me, and had fun with me, but just still was not feeling it. So still, she has not grasped the whole taking accountability of oneself and one's actions that has led to her unhappiness. I fear it may be too late at this age to expect a change, and I have but two options, now. I am literally watching my wife make the same mistakes that she made early on in our life, to find those temporary fixes of happiness. But they fade so quickly, and coming home to reality ends up making reality look worse and worse. I have found myself having to compete against this perception she has of me and not even knowing what it fully is. I watch her go out weekend after weekend doing girls' night out and have proof that nothing is going on with another man anymore. But aside from that initial concern, even the good times with her girlfriends isn't helping her. It's like she comes home, and down she comes. Hard to feel like there's any hope when you know as a man you've been one hell of a trooper. The other day I was walking around a small store, and there was a girl there that looked at me and smiled, asking if I could help reach something from the top shelf. I obliged, but one thing that stuck really hard with me was the sense of happiness this girl had. It was so incredibly attractive to me. It made me feel like, wow, someone who doesn't make me their source, but rather has an internal well of their own happiness, and it shone quite brightly. It sorts of made going home to grumpy wife depressing to me. I so wanted to wash my hands of her right away. I was so ready to stand up straight and watch that bag of dry straw falls off my back, and for once in an extremely long time, feel good. The inherent fix into Facebook wasn't all that bad at first. It was games, Farmville, Cafe World, Cityville. Sure, we had some issues with money, common ordinary spending habit issues, intimacy issues, affection issues. All easily understood and reasonably could be handled with counseling. A child's upbringing in a non-affectionate home passes on to marriages. A child's witness of uncontrolled spending carries forward into adulthood. We all know these things. But the month when her grandma and one of her aunts passed away brought about a deep sense of mortality, reaching the big 40 so closely. It all seemed to perpetuate the smaller, not-so-minor issues. Then they became more apparent and more of a problem. And then the panic attacks began to happen. A short trip to the doctor and Xanax was prescribed. Each issue in itself became aggravated and increasing. The spending habits flew through the roof. The emotional affair began with some old boyfriend from high school never even spoken to. The depression set in, for both of us. I in response to her, and her in response to what was happening in her life. I was there the whole time. I was available. I would ask, and ask again if there was anything I could do to help, anything she needed to talk about. Anything at all. By that time, I was, however unknown to me, part of the problem. 3 weeks on meds for her anxiety and panic attacks, and there I was, part of the problem. Then 2 months into it, and I was the sole problem. Her friends were around us the whole time, knew me and knew us inside and out. Now, none of them talk to me at all. None of them are there to help, her or us. They have heard evidently a one-sided story. I somehow made her miserable, kept her trapped, kept her under my complete control. So, she found another man and got close to him, and after finding this out, I still see not the slightest shred of remorse or responsibility for any of it coming from her. It is now all about how I just won't forgive her for it. It is now how I have somehow been the problem all along. She is now attempting to consolidate her $18,000 worth of credit card debt, going online to look at some of the reviews of the consolidation company. Revealed a multitude of complaints against them, to her. Something needed to be done now, as she has no money. And how dare I do not support her wholeheartedly without hesitation. I've never seen the eyes of such disgust and resentment from her as I see now. I've never witnessed someone so randomly and carelessly destroy and jeopardize every aspect of our lives, and then speak as if it had always been so horrible. Something is not right with her, but this is the 6th time I have heard her say to me that she is not feeling it, that she just doesn't know why, but wants me out. Feeling like she is walking on eggshells, feeling like I hold her accountable for her pursuit of all things anti-marriage, anti-future, anti-stable financially. Not an hour has passed since she last uttered the words, "We can't go on like this," to me, and she is laughing every 30 seconds at some movie on television. It is not that funny, even a comedy is not that funny. Something has cracked inside of her. I can count the days back to when these behaviors all began. It was as if merely days since she began her regimen of meds that these things all began. I went online and see people say that it has saved their marriages, that it has given them peace and relaxation. It has turned my wife into someone I do not know anymore, someone who a year ago would have been repulsed at the thought of some of the actions she has taken since. It is not a scapegoat I seek. The counselor we went to did not have but a few moments to speak between her crying and her angry outbursts in complete rebuttal of each issue I showed concern about. Now her life is centered around her girlfriends, partying, concerts, clubs. Nothing in our life between us is remotely considered of any value to her anymore. And I await the response from a lawyer to call me back and begin the process. She wants me to go away. I have to live with the choices I make, good or bad, she says. Well, honey, so do I, and so does our daughter, and so does everyone we have ever gotten close to. This was a prescription for the end. She does want out, or more notedly, wants me out. I know I've posted a lot of these issues here, but just this hour was able to put 2 and 2 together in terms of whether or not her RX has seriously messed her up. I could ask myself, well, does that mean she's not responsible for her actions and there's the culprit? But then I realized that so much has happened that I am not sure if there's any room to get her off of it. If she would even consider that a possibility. And if I myself could overcome the things that have happened since then. We co-signed on a house that neither of us can afford alone, and we have a child too who considers that the only home she knows. I invited my wife's mother to live with us for the second time in our 16 years together. Because she fell on hard times and had nowhere to go, now she facilitates watching my daughter while mommy is out with the girls, drinking for free from other men buying those drinks, and I get to try to compete with grandma in time with my daughter. While the weight of what my wife is out doing weighs on me, her mother and my wife could probably afford the house together. Both works, but then comes the issue of my daughter. Is that a good place for her to be? My wife's mother refuses to get involved, only says that her daughter has a problem and we should go to counseling. Well, we tried that. It burnt me, and only got me resented further for expressing things I saw as problems between us, saying those things, coupled with my wife's total lack of responsibility or acknowledgement of it, brought about the "don't think I will ever get past my lack of feelings" statement. I haven't left the house. Until a court orders it if they do. I've seen the list and it seems like it's for someone trying to completely ruin another person, not just settle things and move on. It seems like if all of this was someone doing this to me in their right mind, uncorrupted by RX, I would have no problem swiftly and completely running her out of the picture by whatever means legally necessary. This whole RX situation, though, gives me pause. Maybe it just gives me an excuse to chicken out and eat crumbs. Can I ever go back? Even if she stopped the RX and got her mind right. I don't want to uproot my daughter in all of this, fight forever in courts, but at some points in the week, I thought we would surely be able to agree on things during a mediation type of divorce. But now I am not so sure. Darn lawyer won't call me back. Maybe I need to find another. Sometimes anxiety and panic are necessary to stop you from messing your whole life up and the life of everyone else you are close to. Right now, nothing that I've spent the last 5 years complaining about and hurt over can come to mind, as all the wonderful times as a family together has me busting out in tears every 10 minutes. I'm sitting here at work and can't think of anything other than all the fun times, holidays, special things we did. What a horrible loss this has come to. Despite all the misdeeds of my wife and pain she's caused, we still had good times too. My wife feels like this is all her fault and says so. Maybe she's just playing the martyr to facilitate ending things. But I am trying to accept this loss of feeling towards me in marriage. My wife is afraid our daughter will come to hate her for this. I can't see reconciliation as an option at this point, nor can I trust any attempt at it for myself as being something other than simply trying to hang on for dear life. I can't make my wife feel for me like it should be. It does take two. Last night we had a talk about how to pursue the divorce. It wasn't negative in any way at all between us. But we both were very sad, of course. We were together for 16 years, had a daughter. 9 together. And married for 10 years. I could be really harsh and sue for full custody and child support, battling it out in court when neither of us have much money. Heck, my wife is just now starting another consolidation for way too much debt. One of the issues, to pursue full custody and demand child support, would ruin her financially, and most likely lead to bankruptcy for her, therefore losing the house anyways. I don't want to live in that house. I can't afford it by myself. Even if my wife were to have to pay support to me, with so many memories there, it would be like living in a time capsule of hurt. Good memories, hurt. A daily reminder of what once was. My wife should be able to handle it though, and I am willing to sign the house over to her. There is no equity in it, and its market value has fallen to the point it doesn't even qualify for refinance. If this consolidation works out, and her mom living there pitches in, then they can live there and provide a comfortable place of normalcy for my daughter to live. Stay in the same school, same friends on the block to play with, room full of toys, space for pets, etc. In terms of custody, I would be able to see my daughter at any time. Even aside from the typical shared custody routines, I will make sure that's all in writing if we proceed with the mediated divorce agreements. I can't figure how dragging my kid up and out of her home, toys, room, pets, neighborhood, etc., and away from normalcy, to come live in an apartment with me is the best thing for her. Only it will be me that has to go away, but she is daddy's girl by all means, and this is going to really hurt her any which way it works out. Basically, my paying child support to my wife will be the same as my paying for daycare if kiddo were to live with me full time. I am trying not to be selfish about it either. I know my wife is a good mother and genuinely cares for the child, nor is she being crappy towards me in any way about all of this. She just wants to be done with the marriage. The only thing about it is not spending 100% of the time with my daughter. Tucking her in every night, seeing her and being there every day. I kind of feel like I may be screwing up big time by agreeing to this kind of arrangement, but I also have to look at things from a realistic standpoint. My financial capacity, putting hardship on my wife and how it will affect my daughter's lifestyle. No agreements have been put on paper or signed or even mediated about yet, but I am trying to think of what is best for my child. This is so freaking hard and painful. A week ago, I was all excited about getting away from my wife and so resentful at what she's done, but right now, I'm a mess. I don't hate my wife, she just doesn't love me like a married person should anymore, and I am sad about that. And about how this family is coming to an end. She wants to be done with it, feels empty towards me and inside, and so I have to let her go. After facing its finality, however, I don't feel so emotionally strong right now. I don't want to subsist on resentments to keep myself. I am dreading the grieving part. I am dreading the time away from my kid. And I can't really say that I know for sure what is best for her. I plan on getting a 2-bedroom apartment, moving a lot of her toys, etc. with me so she has her own room there too. The wife has said that anytime she wants to come visit me she will, sure. I am afraid of when conflict arises, so I know I have to somehow get that on paper. I guess I don't really know what I am asking here. Am I just seeking someone to say it's okay not to fight for full custody and destroy my wife's life? Even if she deserves it, it all trickles down in some form or another to affect my daughter. She still loves her mommy too. This is so hard, trying to consider everything to move on, and I realize I haven't even come to terms with it myself. Within myself. I haven't even fully absorbed or considered the impact it will all have on me. This was one of the dreams of my life. To have a family. For the rest of my life. I never thought it would come to this. Maybe someone out there has a different kind of custody situation that doesn't make it seem like I am giving up too much. Or laying down and allowing my wife to get it all. I don't think I would be able to rent it and keep it up and all with the way the finances are for me personally. I will be doing good just to keep paying rent in an apartment, and wouldn't be able to rent the house for enough that I could still cover the mortgage note on it by making up the difference myself. The only thing fighting for custody would do in the regards to the house would be I try to stay in it and hope I get enough in child support payments to meet the mortgage note on it monthly. This would be a big if in concerning child support. And the fact that with my wife's situation, she'd be living in a box somewhere or a bad apartment complex trying to keep up with court-ordered child support, bankruptcy would be her only option. Otherwise, we both move into apartments and the house goes back to the bank, killing my credit and affecting my ability to get an apartment. Then comes the issue of trying to find affordable daycare, which is $100 a week. For prior to school and just after school. My work hours just don't allow for it, even if I changed my hours. It would still leave a few hours she would need care before I got home. Summer's coming up and then what can I possibly do? I have no family down here that is close enough. I want my daughter to have interaction with other kids in a structured environment. And even as it is now, my wife is considering having one of her friend's high school daughters watch her a few days a week, and then my wife's mom will watch her the rest of the week. Since she works only 3 days a week. Still feels like I am caving though, The wife reiterated tonight that she wants me to have all the time I want with my daughter. I could hold what she's done to me against her and draw this out for a long battle. It sure doesn't seem fair to me to be the one who has to go find an apartment and live with shared time with my daughter. But the alternatives? Ultimately leaving it up to a judge to decide everything isn't promising. Trying to hire a lawyer and move out and everything else right now is almost impossible. But yeah, my daughter is worth it, just as much as she's worth making this situation as painless as possible for her. Yeah, my wife brought all this on herself, but does that make it right for me to put her in hardship then? I can't really afford child support, but I guess I will have to find a way. I highly doubt I would see much from her in terms of it. Even court-ordered, I'd be in court monthly trying to collect. I don't know what to do, pick something and let the chips fall where they may. I'm considering paying child support to my STBX. Just on an agreement basis through mediation. Because that's more than worth it in concerns of my daughter, or I could hope to get it from my wife. Fight for custody. And put us all through hell. Well, that was the nice guy speaking. Now I'm of a little bit different mindset. I'm reading other stories where men have left their wives with the kids because the men had emotional affairs and then wanted to fool the wife into cheaper child support payments. Well, I was the one whose wife had the emotional affair. She racked up the credit card debts that are hers. I have some too. Why should I move out and I pay child support? Why shouldn't I go for full custody and have my wife, who makes 50% more than I do every year, debt or not, pay child support? If I can't afford the house, then give it back to the bank. She shouldn't be allowed a sweet, comfortable home to live in while I shovel off into an apartment and get visitation with my daughter. This pisses me off so much. Flip-flop I go. I really wish I knew what to do. Maybe I should just let the courts decide. Forget about the mediation idea. I haven't stuck up for myself here. Her debts are her own problem, as mine are my own. She chose this, she refused to change, and now she wants the divorce to escape her shame. Her mom can go live somewhere else, or better yet, they can go get an apartment together. Maybe that will help her. I'm in such a bad position. Be nice. Allow my daughter the familiarity of the house she's grown up in with pets and yard and room to ride a bike. But at my own expense of paying child support and having to live without her for 100% of the time. It's like I am giving my wife a get-out-of-jail-free ticket. She wants this divorce, blames it on a lack of feeling, but quite frankly the meds doesn't bring much feeling of anything. I sure haven't seen a whole lot of tears from her about all this. Can't really prove a whole lot in court with a printout of 100 text messages sent without their content, just numbers. I don't really have any evidence to use as an at-fault against her. Except maybe a court-ordered mental exam might reveal. Worth the risk. I can see it now. Honey, I've decided that I don't want to leave our daughter with you as full custodian and pay you child support and shove off into an apartment somewhere. I've decided I am going to pursue full custody and child support from you, instead of mediating an agreement of the exact opposite. Sorry, wish I knew how to make up my mind. I am dreading the grieving, dreading the shared custody, dreading all the little things that was, but not dreading being free from her. Have to move out and find an apartment, start anew after 16 years of together and 10 years of marriage. There I was, thinking I had myself in a good enough place of mind to let it go, but a tiny 9-year-old voice keeps reminding me of what this was supposed to be. Hell, I can't make her want this. She messed up. She had the emotional affair. She thinks life will just go on and none of this will affect anyone but herself. I have to live with my choices, good or bad. The epitome of selfishness to the end. Never would listen to me about debt and controlling the spending, and now I have to find a place, financing. With all that time afforded me to hurry up. I sit at work and think to myself, I can do this. I can get past this and move on. She's not worth me. But then that little person is there, saying tuck me in. In the quiet evening hours I hear through the walls my wife laughing again at something on TV. I ask myself, how can she laugh right now? At anything. Somehow, I am to unravel the intertwined, bold-faced and smiling as well. All those plans, all those days of happiness nowhere to be found in her. And even a living reminder in the form of a little human being is not enough to sway reconsideration. I talked to a real estate agent today, carving another step in this marble cliffside I face. I sure hope there is warmth way up there atop of it. You had an emotional affair with a man on Facebook, even after my warnings of his flirtatious posts. To which you called me irrationally jealous and whiny. And you hate whiny guys. This same chicken crap who said you told him you were divorced, when I called him to confront him. And then you said, I didn't tell him that. He's still your friend on Facebook, posting weekly well wishes to you and rubbing my face in it. Then you met him for lunch behind my back while shopping for Christmas presents for our daughter. And all your friends that know about it. 5 years of no intimacy between us because you were not the type to initiate, needed understanding and patience. And I loved you enough to not go bonkers about it or pressure you. The tremendous and bankrupt-inducing level of personal credit card debt you incurred, to which you only hated me for trying to control you by asking you to realize what's happening. Weekends after weekends with girls' night out, where if I were to complain one bit, I again would be Mr. Controlling. So even in your fit of anger at finding out that yes, I am interested in seeing my daughter more than your personally entitled selfish ass believed that I would, don't you dare run upstairs and spill the beans to our child, without me saying that mommy and daddy aren't getting along and that we both wanted this. You utter child, you are utterly self-centered, blame-shifting, mentally unstable, immature excuse for a person. I remember long before ever having a serious thought about marriage or dating in my very early teens, seeing soap operas my sisters would watch. Seems like everyone on those shows were in bed together all the time. The crux of the storyline from week to week would be who is cheating on who is sneaking around behind the other's back. Oh, it's okay, he's sneaking around too. It was enough to put the question in my mind as to what it was all about. Did people really do these things to each other? Did an affair-free marriage ever really exist? I mean, I had just gotten out of the phase where the knight in shining armor rescued the princess, and they lived happily ever after. Today, even this is not enough to gain the almighty rating. So worse and worse situations must be written into the storylines to garner viewership, push the envelope, retract the lines. Depravity, destruction of lives, is all yesterday's news. Now it's not edgy enough to write about these things occurring between adults. We must witness the same horrors during the life of the American teenager, on no less than the Family Channel. How much of that must one take in to lose the offense towards it? Desensitizing, demoralizing, just good clean fun. Teaching us how to despise the moral compass one story at a time, one commercial at a time, one billboard at a time. How much training have we had in deception and cheating? It has absolutely and repeatedly been given the highest of honors by Hollywood. Therefore you are nobody if you have any sense of morality. Laughed at for your prudishness, seamlessly written into our lives, like a subliminal image, glorified for its level of depravity. Funny how none of them ever actually tell the truth of the outcome. None of them ever show the devastation of the families, the onslaught of disease or suffering, the destruction of the children's lives, everything they've ever known in their little lives being destroyed. You don't really get to see how badly things turn out, just the act of it all, how passionate, how tempting, how devilishly desirable it is to be bereft of honor, or compassion, or morality. I just looked up the phrase "the other man" in the search box, and the first 100 hits were articles written by up-and-coming literary wannabes that all fantasized and dramatized these situations. Some listing various types of the other man, others were listings of movies that were nothing but 2-hour soap operas on steroids. This has become the draw for ratings. Are there any decent people out there anymore? It appears, since this is the level one must stoop to obtain the status quo, that I will remain inherently uncool. Funny how in the 60s being anti-society was all about going against morality and established boundaries of decency, in hopes to lose those ever-binding chains of imposed restraint or socially acceptable self-control that was oh so burdensome. So here we are now, 50 years later, with all the freedom we ever needed, and here we are today. Lives destroyed, 100 times worse. No boundaries, no morals, no compass. Complete and utter death of the spirit within us that had any hope of recognizing real goodness, completeness of family, and real honor or wholesome love toward one another. My comment: having been given the freedom to restrain ourselves, and the control to control ourselves, finding ourselves facing the results of these terrible things we have been conditioned to desire. Part 3 tomorrow morning. Enjoy your Sunday evening, and I'll get back to working on it.